The vicious stepsister absolutely hates me. She humiliates me in every way possible, but the more she humiliates me, the more shamelessly I cling to her. Out of sheer helplessness, she gave me 20,000 yuan and begged me not to walk home with her after school. Then she even offered 200,000 for me to transfer out of her class. But every single time, I would find a way to get close to her again. After the college entrance exams, she transferred all her allowance to me. Her voice cold as she said, "This is 5 million. Go study abroad. Don't ever show up in my house again." My eyes turned red. I lowered my head and said softly, "Okay, heh." She finally fell for it. Chapter 1. I caught Willow almost kissing a poor scholarship student in the dimly lit private room. She shyly shut her eyes, leaning against the sofa in the corner, her delicate features blurred by the shadows. The boy in a white shirt stood beside her, his hands braced against the sofa, testing as he leaned closer to her. But the next second, I suddenly pushed the door open. He jolted all over, hurriedly turning around to look at me, as if he had been caught red-handed doing a very private kind of handicraft project. He stammered nervously, "George, I ignored him and walked straight toward Willow. With a fawning smile, I said, "The driver came to pick me up, and Uncle asked me to bring you home too." She rolled her eyes at me, snatched up her bag, and followed me out with obvious annoyance. Late at night, the hallway was nearly empty. She shut the door behind her but didn't leave. Leaning lazily against it, with a cold snort, she said, "He almost kissed me." I was speechless. I said nothing. Her voice grew sharper with displeasure. She continued, "Do you know how long I've been waiting for this day? He's so honest, it took him forever to work up the courage." I unlocked my phone and showed her the time along with the message from my stepfather, lowering my voice as I explained. "See, why won't you believe me? Uncle really told me to pick you up." She glanced at it and responded perfunctorily. "Oh, got it." With a huff, she added, "I'm already an adult, and I've finished the college entrance exams. He can't control me anymore. Tattling won't do you any good." The flashing neon lights drifted across, illuminating her face. Her cheeks were flushed. Clearly, she'd been drinking. I scratched my head, my voice barely above a whisper. "But," she quickly cut me off. "Go back on your own, Anne." She pulled out her phone from her bag, tapping a few times on the screen. With disdain in her eyes, she said, "This 5 million, my dad gave it to me as pocket money. Take it all and go study abroad. Just don't show up in my house again." She added angrily, "Let's never see each other again." She said, "George, I really hate you." She never wanted to see me again. In that instant, my eyes brimmed with tears. I lowered my head, biting my teeth as I forced out, "Okay." Willow turned and walked back into the private room, slamming the door shut. I checked the number in my mobile banking app. I finally couldn't hold it in, turned my back in cowardice, trembling as I leaned against the wall. The next second, I burst out laughing. Gaga gaga. Good, good, good. She finally fell for it. Chapter 2. Willow has hated me for a long time. She thinks my mom and I are only after the Liu family's money, that we want to leech off her inheritance. Well, she really is smart. Back in middle school, she mixed sand into my lunchbox, cut my school uniform, poured glue into my books. She tried every trick she could to force me out of her house, but I kept my head down, always obedient, never complaining. Even when my stepfather knew about it, he never scolded her once. Instead, feeling guilty, my stepfather gave me pocket money, and whenever I saw money, I couldn't help but feel happy again. At 16, Willow and I were both placed into the same high school. She didn't want to be in the same class as me, yet she also didn't want our stepfather to scold her and praise me instead. So she skipped straight to the point. With her chin raised proudly, she said, 200,000. Transfer out of this class. In freshman year, I left in despair. By sophomore year, I shamelessly came back. After all, she never said there was a time limit. When I walked back into the classroom with my bag on my shoulder, Willow's face turned dark. The girl sitting in front of her teased, "Willow, your brother is really persistent." Willow snapped coldly, "He's not my brother." Everyone else laughed knowingly. Willow frowned at me and said, "What will it take for you to disappear from in front of me?" My voice was hoarse, my tone dejected, as I said, "Do you really hate me that much?" She raised her hand and showed a number with her fingers. I gritted my teeth, and then I said, "Sorry, I went into the wrong classroom today." Chapter 3. I discovered a business opportunity. Willow's allowance was truly abundant, and her mother, who lived abroad, had already paved the entire road ahead for her. When she went shopping, I followed behind step by step like a lackey, helping her carry bags and things. With a look of pure disgust, she told me to leave, but I gazed at her with tender concern and said, "As your brother, isn't it natural for me to care about my sister?" She transferred me money, and said, Get lost and stop bothering me. Well, I could only accept it with a smile. I clung to Willow for over a year. Everyone knew she had such a stepbrother, and they even joked about us, saying when our forbidden romance started, make sure to let them know. After a while, Willow didn't even bother to explain anymore. She simply kept throwing money at me, telling me to get out of her way. But how could I possibly leave my golden goose? On Willow's coming-of-age birthday, she drank with her best friends. After returning from the nightclub, I held a bowl of hangover soup in one hand and supported her with the other, secretly hoping that in her drunken haze, she might transfer me money with an extra zero. She squinted, lifting her eyes to me, and suddenly said, "George, you really are despicable and shameless." Her words laced with mockery. My step faltered on the stairs, being scolded, that ought to come with extra payment. Then, without warning, she hooked her arm around my neck, stood on tiptoe, and pressed herself against me. On the winding staircase, she kissed me. Somehow, the lights went out. My vision dimmed in an instant. All I could see was her delicate face, but in the next second, a man's voice rang out, "George, what's going on?" It was my stepfather. Startled, I pulled away from Willow. The bowl slipped from my hand. Clattering down the stairs, I lowered my voice, putting on the same honest, simple act as always. "Willow's probably in a bad mood today. She's throwing a tantrum." She even smashed my bowl. Willow lowered her eyes, leaning against the railing, silent in the darkness. My stepfather sighed and said, "Willow is becoming more and more willful. Don't mind her. Just go rest. I'll take care of her." I fled back to my room. At 3 in the morning, Willow sent me a message. "Pathetic man. Don't get any ideas. I didn't see clearly just now. I mistook you for someone else. Get ideas. About what? What was there for me to think about?" She scolded me and still didn't transfer me money. Who's the pathetic one here? I think that's still up for debate. Chapter 4. I only later found out who that person was. One of Willow's admirers, Makoto, a poor student who had always ranked among the top 10 in the grade. Insecure and timid, he only dared to look at her from a distance, but Willow noticed him. Willow once said, "Insecurity is the best cosmetic surgery for a man." Unlike some people, thick-skinned, shameless, and yet still so ordinary, she hated me, but she really liked Makoto's type of personality. After school, I sat in the car waiting for her, yet beside her stood a simply dressed boy. The car door opened. Willow didn't get in. Instead, she rolled her eyes at me and said carelessly, "Get out." I froze for a moment. Makoto, embarrassed, raised his hand in a stiff smile and tried to persuade her. "Don't be like this, Willow. I can push the car back myself. Maybe we'll even run into a repair shop on the way." But Willow didn't give in. Her voice grew colder as she said, "No way." Then she turned to me and said, "I already transferred the money to you. Take a taxi back yourself. Now get lost." Damn, why didn't she give me enough to buy a car for myself? Forget it. Take what I can. I nodded awkwardly, clenching my fists, gritting my teeth, and stepped out of the car in humiliation. At dusk, as the crowd dispersed, I stood at the roadside, eyes red, glaring resentfully at the two of them as they got into the car. Only when that car drove off in the completely opposite direction did I hurriedly take out my phone and open Willow's message. 20,000. Good thing I didn't check the transfer in front of her just now. Otherwise, I might have burst out laughing. Chapter 5. Willow gave me that 5 million too late. I hadn't prepared for IELTS beforehand, so I had no choice but to cancel most of my travel and parties, staying cooped up in my room memorizing vocabulary. Downstairs, Willow hosted a party with her friends. The speakers blared loudly. I took off my headphones and went down. I asked, "Can you turn the volume down a little?" A rich second-generation guy came over, clapping my shoulder with a smile. "George, you're at home. Why not join us?" I sighed awkwardly and said, "I'm upstairs memorizing vocabulary." Memorizing vocabulary? Someone turned off the speaker to hear me better. That guy laughed. "I thought only internet nerds crammed this early. Even Makoto the genius is here having fun. Come on and join." Willow never lifted her head once. Makoto sat beside her, smiling at me kindly, though his face showed hesitation. Finally, he said, "Brother, you're not planning to retake the exam, are you?" I wasn't close with him, but he called me brother. Clearly things between him and Willow had gone further than I thought. He continued, "It's okay if you didn't do well. Your family has money, so you should have plenty of options." Sensing the tension between us, the others all went quiet. I shrugged and said, "That makes sense. My family has money, so it doesn't matter how I do on the exams. And if you screw up, it doesn't matter either. At worst, you can just lie flat and say, 'To hell with it.'" His face turned pale. At last, Willow lifted her head, snapping at me. "George, don't be so harsh." I nodded and said, "All right, I'll go back to studying. You all keep it down." I put my headphones back on and went upstairs, yet I could feel several gazes on my back, sharp as needles. Chapter 6. On the day the exam results came out, Makoto was also at our house. This time the excuse was that his family's old computer from the Qing dynasty had finally broken down. Even though Willow knew perfectly well that our province released results via text message, she still invited him over like some love-struck fool. Around 3 in the afternoon, I suddenly heard Willow sobbing in the study. I couldn't tell if it was from sadness or tears of joy. The text message didn't include the total score. Willow held a calculator, adding up each subject one by one. I headed out for class. Passing by the study, the door wasn't closed. She was leaning over the desk, her voice full of delight as she read out Makoto's score. 672, and I just happened to overhear it. She knew I passed by that way, but didn't even lift her head. With a cold snort, she said, "What about you?" Makoto looked puzzled. "What?" While changing my shoes downstairs, I casually replied, 690, a better than expected performance. I waited for her to ask more. Suddenly, something clattered onto the floor, making a sharp sound. Chapter 7. My dad wants you to apply to Z University. That evening, Willow stood outside my door and said this to me. My stepfather was a very traditional man. He valued education, believing that his children getting into a good university would bring him more face. Of course, I also knew the other reason. He wanted me at Z University so I could look after Willow. I held the doorknob, wanting to shut the door. I frowned and said, "Didn't you tell me to study abroad?" Willow was silent for a moment, then rolled her eyes. "Are you really that spineless? You just do whatever I say." I laughed. Well, she had already given me the money, how could I not listen? But in the past, I only ever listened halfway. When she told me to get lost, I'd leave for an hour, only to return and pester her again. This time, though, I really didn't have the face to push back. 5 million. I promised myself I'd take it and leave, never to appear again. At family gatherings, my mom and I could always sit at a separate table. She pouted. "So you're not going to listen to my dad?" I had played the honest, obedient kid role in this house long enough. Acting clueless was second nature. Of course, I couldn't just ignore my stepfather's wishes, so I nodded dumbly and asked, "Then what major should I choose?" She replied, "Give me your password. I'll let Makoto fill out the forms for you. No one understands how to choose majors better than he does." I scratched my head and muttered, "Just don't send me off to the Gobi Desert." Willow chuckled lightly and said, "Makoto isn't that kind of person." I didn't know. I didn't care. I was already preparing to accept an overseas offer. Chapter 8. And so, the very knowledgeable Makoto filled in mechanical engineering for himself, agriculture for Willow, and for my application, he filled all 80 slots. I had to delete them one by one myself. Makoto and Willow both got admitted successfully. Turns out, he really didn't care about Willow's future at all. My stepfather was delighted and prepared to book a hotel to throw a college admission banquet for Willow. At the dining table, he opened a bottle of wine worth over 100,000 and clinked glasses with my mom. Willow came down the stairs and casually mentioned, "Should George and I have our celebration together?" After the high school entrance exams, we had also held a joint banquet. My stepfather chuckled. He said, "George won't have his for now," he explained. "He's preparing to go abroad to avoid taking up someone else's college admission slot." He deleted all his choices. "We'll hold his celebration next year." The faint smile on Willow's lips vanished instantly. Her face darkened. She bit her lip and asked, "Going abroad?" I lowered my head, quietly eating, occasionally sipping the wine worth more than 100,000 per bottle. Didn't taste good, but the more I drank, the more I earned. There was no way I'd ever buy something like that for myself. My stepfather frowned. He said, "Yes, the decision was a bit sudden, but I fully support George. This is supposed to be a happy occasion." Why the long face? Willow lowered her eyes, clearly unhappy, and said, "I'm not happy." My stepfather didn't understand. "Didn't you say you wanted to attend the same university as the person you liked? Now you've been admitted, and to Z University, no less. What's there to be unhappy about? The major isn't great, sure, but you can transfer later. No one's really going to make you farm the land. Your mother's also thrilled. She wants you to spend a month with her over the summer." Willow asked, "Which country?" My stepfather slammed his chopsticks down. "You don't even know which country your own mother is in." She turned to look at me, and for once, there was a trace of grievance in her eyes. She said, "I was asking George." My stepfather silently picked up his chopsticks again. I put down the wine glass, lifted my gaze cautiously, and said, "I haven't decided yet." Chapter 9. That night, Willow came into my room to borrow my phone to look things up. Hers had broken. When her admission results came out earlier, she had angrily knocked over the water glass Makoto handed her, spilling it all over her phone. Honestly, so old already. and still messing around with water indoors. She lay on my bed scrolling through my phone, while I could only sit at my desk playing on the computer to ease the awkwardness. The room was quiet, except for the sound of my typing and clicking. The next second, Willow suddenly said, "Wouldn't it be nice if you went to America?" I asked. "Why?" She snorted softly. "So you'd be far away from me." But that was the country where her mother lived. I was speechless. I glanced at her, and she was wriggling on the bed like a bug, inching herself a little farther away from me. After a while, she leaned over again, half resting against my shoulder, poked me, and said, "Look at this school." I was speechless. So now she was acting like a little sister again. Her moods changed faster than the weather. The room felt warm, so Willow casually shrugged off her jacket, revealing a white camisole underneath. She pursed her lips and muttered, "So hot." Unbelievable, she was acting crazy without even drinking. I ignored her and directly set the air conditioner to 16 degrees. Willow rolled her eyes. She asked, "So, what do you think?" I replied, "It's fine." She switched through a few more pages. I repeated over and over, "It's fine. Anything's fine." Willow stopped. She leaned back on the bed, raising her eyes to stare at me. The truth was, I had already made my choice long ago. I just didn't want to tell her. Chapter 10. It started to rain outside. A sudden summer downpour. The rain pattered against the window. A steady rustling sound. Willow frowned and asked, "Are you blaming me?" She suddenly spoke, her voice so soft it was nearly drowned out by the rain. Such a ridiculous question. I thought for a moment, then answered honestly, "Of course not." At first, I did find her annoying. She was always sharp-tongued, saying awful things, telling me more than once to get out of the Liu family. She even said in front of classmates that my mom and I came just to scam money from her family. The truth is, my family wasn't poor, we just didn't have as much as her parents. At school, she never once treated me kindly, but the willful, arrogant stepsister would turn into gentle, warm numbers in my bank account balance. So I stopped caring much about how she treated me. As for her sending me abroad out of spite, I even considered her my benefactor for that. But now, I was too lazy to keep up the act, and there was no need to anymore. She asked again, "Is this your way of retreating to advance?" That one was harder to answer. Taking the money while pretending to yield could be called retreating to advance, but not in the way she thought. I frowned, wanting to speak but holding back. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Makoto, here to pick her up. She hesitated for a moment, then stood up and walked out. When she opened the door, she softened her tone, acting coy with Makoto as she said, "Why are you only just here? I've been waiting for you forever." So she could speak nicely. It seemed her bad temper had always been reserved just for me. Chapter 11. Willow and Makoto went out on a date. Makoto posted photos of their trip on his WeChat Moments. By the sea, Willow wore a straw hat and a white dress, smiling radiantly as Makoto held her in his arms. The photo even had the watermark of a professional camera. The caption read, "If only I could meet the younger you. I'd hold you close and never let you get hurt." I gave it a like, then kept scrolling. I liked all the vacation posts my old classmates had shared. Everyone's life looked so wonderful. Nice to see. Love to see. Please, everyone, post more. Then Makoto sent me a private message with another photo. It was Willow, asleep outside, lying on a picnic table. He wrote, "George, it's a good thing you didn't come. Traveling is exhausting. It's much more comfortable just staying home." I stared at the screen silently. Why was she sleeping outside like that? Could it be they'd run out of money? Surely she wouldn't take back what she'd given me. I felt a little anxious. After thinking carefully, I replied cautiously, "Then let her rest well there. Don't let her get too tired. If the beach is too hot, maybe she can sleep under a bridge for shade." Makoto took a long time typing before he finally replied, "George, I really need to talk to you. Both you and Willow are adults now. You're step-siblings without blood relation. So really, you should keep your distance." There were hundreds more words after that. I stared at his essay in silence. Copy, paste. I dropped it into a search engine and hit enter. No results. I switched back to WeChat and replied, "Okay." Chapter 12. During the long summer vacation, I took the IELTS, organized all my documents, and submitted my applications. Many universities were already accepting admissions with Gaokao and AST scores, so I tried my best to start this year. By mid-August, Willow had registered at her university. I was still stuck at home. The house wasn't far from the school. After military training, Willow came home almost once a week. She spoke very little with me, but still, we met weekly. Sometimes Makoto accompanied her. When the two of them walked in and saw me sitting on the sofa in the living room reading, he looked surprised, then pretended to act familiar as he said, "George still hasn't received an offer. Then doesn't that mean you'll only be able to start next year?" Willow curled her lips slightly and said, "Maybe." He suddenly looked enlightened and added, "Wouldn't that mean you'll graduate a year later than us?" I replied calmly, "The school I applied to only has a 3-year undergraduate program. I must have hit a nerve." He awkwardly scratched his chin, his eyes flickering, voice timid. "I really didn't know that." Willow snorted softly. "What's there to know?" She added, "Everyone starts from a different place. Knowing doesn't give you any superiority." It sounded like a jab at me. I didn't know what I had done to irritate them, but I didn't want to argue. I closed my book and headed upstairs. From behind me, Willow called out, "What school?" I turned back. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling across the steps. I shrugged at her and said, "Better not to say. Don't want to show off my superiority." Chapter 13. In mid-September, the day my stepfather and my mom drove me to the airport. It was a work day. He had wanted Willow to ask for leave and come along, but I refused. I said, "My sister has never liked me. Better not to upset her." I left directly, and in doing so, granted her wish. When the plane leveled out in the air, I opened the shade and looked outside. Only clouds. The ground was no longer visible. The flight was long. I pulled a blanket over myself, put on a U-shaped pillow, and closed my eyes to sleep. Unexpectedly, I dreamed of Willow. At 14, a relative spitefully told her that her mom had come. She ran out happily, only to see me and my mom. They had meant stepmom, not her real mother. My first impression of Willow was that she was gloomy, pale and thin, listlessly staring at me. My stepfather was always busy. Her real mother lived far away overseas. I thought maybe she was pitiful too, until I ate a mouthful of sand. At that point, I was the pitiful one. In our youth, we clashed constantly. My stepfather would scold her, because she was his biological daughter and easier to discipline. My mom never hit me. She only spoiled me. I once thought of treating Willow better, but the kinder you are to a woman like her, the more she walks all over you. She threw a tantrum, demanding our stepfather buy her a cake from the edge of the city. But he was away on business and couldn't come back, so I went myself, spending the whole afternoon running back and forth. The moment I handed her the cake, she dumped it straight into the trash. The first love letter I ever received, she tore it to pieces. During her rebellious phase, she rarely spoke, except to repeat one word again and again: hate. She hated me, hated that my name was on the same household registry as hers, hated the way I always wore that indifferent expression. I got fed up and ignored her for 2 months. When high school started, she was the one who came to talk to me. Her first sentence was still, "I hate you. Transfer to another class." Her second sentence was giving me 200,000. With a vicious tone, she said, "This should be enough, right? Damn, who does she look down on? For that much money, I'd transfer schools if she wanted." I answered, "Sure." She rolled her eyes in disdain and sneered, "You really are shameless." Chapter 14. I landed in London, rented a place and began living alone. At first, I couldn't adjust to the all-English lectures, couldn't get used to the food here. I felt gloomy and depressed all day long. A week after I left home, Willow finally sent me a message. "You left without saying a word," I replied. She asked, "Why?" It took me a long time before I answered her. I wrote back, "Because I hate you too. No need to let you know." Back when I hadn't gotten any money from her, I never said things like that. I always felt it wasn't worth picking a fight with someone so starved of love. But now, in a foul mood myself, I couldn't care about her feelings. Willow never replied again. Instead, Makoto called me. He demanded, "What did you say to Willow?" I flipped through my book, answering casually, "Nothing much." He shouted angrily, "She blocked me." I closed my book and scolded him. "She knocked you. A girl knocked you, and you didn't knock her back. Useless piece of trash." Makoto grew flustered. Then after a pause, he clenched his teeth and said clearly, "She deleted all my contacts." I said, "Oh, she probably caught swine fever after drinking. Just wait until she sobers up and regrets it." Then I hung up. I was busy. Didn't have time to provide him with emotional support. Chapter 15. After the semester ended, I went home for a month's holiday. Traveled with a junior schoolmate who happened to be on the same route. Her family came to pick her up, so I had to wait a while longer. I walked her part of the way, helped carry her luggage. After sending her off, I saw Willow. She had gotten thinner, her figure looking even more delicate. She came over and walked beside me. No sarcasm, no deliberate avoidance. At 19, she finally seemed to resemble a normal person. She asked, "Who was that just now?" She stopped walking and looked at me. I said, "A junior schoolmate I know fairly well." Willow pressed her lips together and said, "I'm just being kind in telling you this. Don't you know many female students abroad aren't exactly pure?" I raised my hand, looked at her, and cut her off directly. "Then do me a favor and stop being kind. I think my girlfriend is a very good person." Willow froze. By then, I had already spotted my stepfather's car in the parking lot. I walked over, opened the car door. My mom sat in the passenger seat. She asked, "Where's Willow? Didn't she go pick you up?" I dropped my bag and said, "She walks too slow. I wanted to see you sooner, so I ran here." My mom smiled. She said, "I already asked Auntie to buy groceries. We'll make all your favorite dishes tonight. You look." She paused. Haven't lost weight." 3 minutes passed and Willow still hadn't come. My stepfather called her. Soon after, she hurried over and sat in the back seat. Between us sat my backpack. Her eyes remained lowered, rims reddened. I had no idea what she was thinking. Chapter 16. At the dinner table, Willow remained silent, detached from everything. She had always been like this, never giving anyone face. Everyone was used to it. After finishing my meal, I didn't go upstairs. Instead, I went to the yard and lay down on the reclining chair. The orange-red leaves scattered across the courtyard rustled softly in the wind. Willow followed me out. She stood behind me. Her voice caught slightly as she asked, "Do you really have someone you like? Or did you make up a girlfriend just to get under my skin?" I stopped moving, letting the rocking chair slow down. I asked, "Why would I use this to provoke you? Would this really make you angry?" Willow avoided answering. Instead, she asked, "What's her name?" I answered, "Anna." That much I didn't lie about. I wouldn't play tricks like that just to grab her attention. I truly was with someone else. Willow said discontentedly, "George, you've only been abroad for 3 months. I nodded calmly. I said, "Exactly, because we just started dating. I didn't bring her home with me this time." She took a deep breath and asked, "Is she very pretty?" I frowned and said, "I'm with her not because of her looks." She pressed, "Then is her family as wealthy as mine?" I replied impatiently, "Never asked. Does that even matter?" Willow bit her lip and said nothing more. She stepped in front of me. Her eyes were slightly wet, her mood colder than the autumn wind that night. She bit her lip again and said, "What exactly do you see in her?" "Too close." I stood up and said, "She's a very kind girl." Then I added, "Move aside. I'm going back to my room." Chapter 17. Anna was a good person. She was a friend of a friend. She was gentle and friendly to everyone, no matter how dull the topic. She would never let another person's words fall flat. I met her at a gathering of friends. I couldn't stomach the food there, only ate a few bites, and went hungry the entire night. Anna lived on the same street as us. When we shared a taxi back, we passed by her apartment. She asked us to wait for her a moment. She ran upstairs and came back with something. 2 portions of soufflé, one for me, one for my friend. She handed me the box, her eyes curving with a gentle smile. In a soft voice, she said, "I baked these this afternoon. Try them. You can eat them later at home too." I thanked her and then was so moved by the smell that tears came to my eyes. The pressure from my studies had been overwhelming. I couldn't get used to the food here, and with alcohol still in my system, my emotions spiked. I just couldn't hold back. My friend stared at me in disbelief and elbowed me. "What's with you?" I shook my head and said, "Nothing. It's just too delicious." My friend slapped his thigh and said, "What's the big deal? If you like it so much, we'll just go freeload a meal at her place tomorrow. She loves cooking. She can make both Chinese and Western food." I wasn't close enough to her yet, so I didn't dare. But the next day, my friend came back with a lunchbox and forced it into my hands. He said, "Here, I brought this back for you. Eat it." Inside the cartoon ceramic lunchbox, the rice was packed tightly. One half was topped with tomato beef stir-fried with egg, the other half left plain. On the side, little walls of cola chicken wings. I subtly asked my friend about Anna's preferences, planning to send her something in return. He asked her, then came back to me and said, "She said if you want to know, you should ask her yourself." So I added her contact. That was the beginning of me and Anna. Chapter 18. Willow didn't move an inch. She said, "You dumb straight guy don't get it. All of that can be faked. You've only known her 3 months. Do you even know what a pretentious coquette is?" She lifted her eyes to me, pouting. "Maybe she just thinks you're too simple, easy to fool." I was speechless. I said, "Willow, you've always judged others with malice. 3 months, I really didn't know Anna well enough. But so what? As long as we were happy together, wasn't that enough?" She was gentle, considerate, never threw tantrums, never sharp-tongued. We'd never even had a fight. I shoved Willow aside. She was caught off guard, stumbling back 2 steps, almost falling. I walked past her, back to my room, and shut the door. On the balcony, there were several new pots of plants I didn't recognize. I took photos and sent them to the housekeeper. I asked, "What are these?" She replied, "Plumbago. Your sister brought them over. She said she wanted you to see the flowers she grew when you come back next year." Plumbago. I remembered when I first moved in here. I thought the balcony was too empty, wanted to keep some plants. I'd heard plumbago was easy to grow. After school, I bought 5 pots, but Willow blocked me at the door. Wouldn't even let me inside. Standing on the steps, her young face full of impatience, she snapped. I'm allergic to pollen. Throw them away. And you, get out. Wash up before you come back, the housekeeper said after I went abroad. Willow started growing flowers herself. Plumbago blooms for a long season, still blossoms in November. Willow even took photos and posted them on her moments. The housekeeper gave her a like, but I didn't. I had set her posts to chat only, so she wasn't really allergic. I replied, give them back to her. I'm not interested in keeping plants right now. Chapter 19. In early January, I was going back to school again. Willow wanted to send me to the airport in front of my stepfather. I couldn't refuse, but at least, this year I wouldn't have to spend the new year with her. On New Year's Eve, after class, Anna came to find me. I couldn't cook in my apartment, so we went together to her best friend's rented villa to celebrate. There were lots of friends there. Everyone played cards in the living room. Anna was in the kitchen. I rolled up my sleeves, walked over, and said, let me help, she said. I'm just washing fruit. She lifted her eyes to me with a gentle smile. She picked up a freshly washed strawberry and brought it to my lips. She said, taste this first. I bit into it, the sweet and sour juice bursting in my mouth. I nodded in approval. Not bad. Anna carried over a glass bowl filled with washed strawberries. Was this some kind of test? I held the bowl earnestly and said, I really did come to help you. She tilted her head slightly and said, I know. Then added, then help me make dessert. On the other side was a long table, clean, elegant utensils and ingredients neatly arranged, like a set of toy kitchen playthings. Chapter 20. We made over 10 dishes. Everyone ate and drank their fill and had a great time. Late at night, my friends drove us back. I'd had quite a bit to drink, not drunk, but I wanted to take advantage of this buzz to get closer to her. When we reached downstairs, the car door opened, and the cold wind hit my face. I helped Anna tie her scarf, put on her fluffy hat, then took her hand, and together, we stepped into the thick snow. The snow hadn't been cleared yet. It was a vast white blanket. We walked slowly, but when we reached the stairs, Anna misstepped and almost lost her balance. Luckily, I reached out, wrapping my arm around her waist, pulling her back. We were very close. Our noses almost touched. Her skin was very fair, but now flushed with a drunken red, like white porcelain stained with rouge, beautiful enough to make it hard to look away. She was beautiful. I felt the moment was right, so I cupped the back of her head and leaned in to kiss her. The night was dark, and the streetlight emitted a soft glow. The wind blowing was cold, but her face was hot, her breath scorching. The kiss ended. She buried her face in my chest, her cheeks flushed. I chuckled softly and held her tight. Snow fell silently, and it felt like the whole world was just the two of us, with only our heartbeats in sync. However, just as I turned to say something, my gaze froze. A woman in a beige trench coat stood in the distance, quietly watching everything from below. It was Willow. Chapter 21. I reluctantly said goodbye to Anna, and we walked into the hallway. Willow quickly approached me, her presence bringing the cold with her. I didn't know how long she had been standing outside. Snowflakes had settled in her black hair. She knew the address to my apartment. Sometimes, my mom would video call me in the living room, and no one ever avoided the screen. I never expected her to come here so quietly, alone. At this moment, our eyes met, and we both spoke at the same time. She said, Happy New Year. I asked, what are you doing here? Willow whispered, came to see you. I turned my gaze away, replying indifferently, I'm fine. She pressed her lips together, and with a strained voice, said, I'm sorry. It was such an odd thing to apologize for. What was she apologizing for? Words were rented, and speaking more would increase the rent. I didn't respond. She paused, then looked at my face and continued explaining on her own. I didn't let Makoto touch me. I just wanted to know your attitude, so I went on a date with him. Ah, so it was about that. I said, okay, got it. Don't bring it up again. Whether she was angry or sad, she lowered her eyes and leaned against the wall. Scraping the dust off it, she wiped her eyes and said, before you went abroad, I had a fight with Makoto. She choked up and said, he took my phone while I was listening to online classes, and he saw the transfers between you and me. She continued. He added up all the transfer records, and there were over 1 million in total. He scolded me, saying I was cheap, saying I was putting on a show of being a good girl while being a whore underneath. He also said that I didn't like him at all, because love follows the money. By the end, her voice trembled, but I didn't understand what she meant. I laughed and asked, so, are you planning to get the money back? Willow's voice grew hoarse. She said, no, that's not what I wanted to tell you. I was losing patience now, my eyes wandering, starting to count the bricks on the floor. I asked, then what do you want to say? She was silent for a moment. Her lashes fluttered slightly. her fingers digging deeply into her palm. She said, "Where the money is, love is too." That's something I used to say to him when I complained about him being stingy, and he said it back to me. "George, what I'm saying is, I like you. All these years, I don't believe you didn't notice." She choked up. Chapter 22. Believing that the other person likes you is one of the biggest illusions. By the time I met Willow, she was already past the age where you could just act out and like someone. I had noticed that in high school, but her moods were so unpredictable that it was hard for me to believe there was any real affection behind it. I shook my head and said, "No, I didn't notice. Liking is liking. Money is money. They're separate things. Anyone who says where money is, love is really just telling the other person, if you like me, you owe me something. So no, between you and me, there's only a transaction." How should I put it? "You're so dramatic. I thought that was your way of compensating me for emotional damage." She grabbed my sleeve, choking back tears as she said, I just always felt that I should hate you, that I should push you away. That's why I treated you like that. I didn't dare let you hover in front of me, didn't dare face my own feelings. It was getting late. I was a bit tired and yawned, shrugging her hand off. Since she hadn't pressed the elevator button, I did it myself. I said, "All right, go on. I'm heading upstairs." Willow's eyes turned red. She said, "I took a long flight to come see you. You aren't even going to let me sit for a while." I remembered the little essay Makoto had sent me earlier. I took out my phone and dramatically recited it. I sighed. "I have a girlfriend now. We're not blood-related siblings, so we should really keep our distance." I fought magic with magic. Finally, I managed to send the lost Willow away. Chapter 23. Anna still found out about me and Willow. After being together for a year, I purposely chose a day when Willow wasn't home to introduce Anna to my mom. But Willow saw a shopping post from my aunt and drove for 2 hours from school to rush back. During dinner, Anna sat next to me and, without thinking, playfully said, "Brother, I want some juice." I naturally picked up her glass and poured her some. Willow also raised her glass and handed it to me, but I set the drink down. Anna looked at Willow and smiled apologetically. What could have been a light-hearted joke? Willow, however, turned cold. She put down her chopsticks. Annoyed. "Do you think calling each other that is some kind of game between you two?" Anna froze for a moment. With elders present, she lowered her eyes, feeling guilty. "Sorry, I was out of line. We didn't manage to finish the meal." I snapped at Willow. "What's with the attitude? Does this have anything to do with you?" It had been a long time since I called her sister. She rarely called me brother either. What was the problem with Anna calling me that? It was the first time I shouted at Willow, and both my stepfather and mom were startled. Willow froze. She looked embarrassed, didn't respond, and buried her head in her bowl. The soup in front of her grew more and more empty. Then she suddenly burst into tears. My stepfather was shocked again. Willow wiped her eyes, stood up, and left. Anna only knew that I had a stepsister. She knew she had a bad temper, a lot of money, and acted recklessly at home, never caring about anyone's feelings. But that was all she knew. After dinner, while we walked in the yard, I decided to come clean to Anna. It wasn't really a confession. I hadn't done anything wrong, but the words I said might upset her. I would probably need to calm her down later. I turned around, quietly observing her expression. Her brows furrowed tightly. I softly asked, "Are you mad?" She lightly snorted and said, She was indeed upset. I let go of her hand and raised my hand, intending to swear an oath, but she took my hand again. Her fingers intertwined with mine. She tilted her head and looked at me helplessly. She said, "I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at Willow." She knew how to get mad. We reached an understanding. Chapter 24. I stopped caring about Willow. Life went on as usual. After the holiday ended, I returned to school. I attended classes in lecture halls, went to the Senate library to write papers, and met Anna for meals. She was truly emotionally stable, and very considerate of others, like a mature wife. Later, I decided to pursue graduate studies. Everything went smoothly. Willow's presence in my life became smaller and smaller. One time, I saw the housekeeper tidying up her room. She found a stack of papers. They were boarding passes, all to London. I had no idea what kind of abstract plans she was making. Unfortunately, I had moved to a new house, and the school was crowded. Despite her numerous visits, she never ran into me by accident. Before Christmas, I received an offer from my new school. It was a better school than my undergraduate one. I had the right people around me, and a bright future ahead. My wings were already long and sharp, and when spring came, there would naturally be a chance to soar.